Oliver left his mansion at Dreadford Heights and walked into his garage in a hurry. He checked his watch and confirmed he was still on time. In his car, he found a trade card, an ancestor of the more commonly known business card, resting on the driver's seat. He took it and saw the card was in mint condition, even though it could be from the 19th century. It had a general store name on it, Sunrise Emporium, with an old-style logo. He thought it strange because he had never seen it before. It would have to wait because he had more pressing matters. With no hesitation, he pocketed the card and drove off. Hidden in the shadows, someone observed him.
The hook is set. He took the bait. Now all that is left is a little nudge.
A feminine figure said into a small comm device before vanishing into the night. Whoever saw Oliver passing by could never guess his harsh upbringing. His family was poor and his father was an alcohol abuser who was violent toward his mother. When he was a young teen, he started to rub elbows with gangsters, but his father owed a lot of money to some shady characters and paid with his life. That was a wake-up call. Soon he excelled in school, sports, anything that could give him an edge. He worked minimum wage and put himself through business school. Finally, his dream came true and he landed a job in the financial sector. There he showed he had a knack for managing people and making hard decisions. But what made him come to Nicholas C. Graham's notice, the company owner, was the internet. Oliver was more than an enthusiast. He was a believer. The World Wide Web would change the world, and Oliver knew it. He had to make sure Nicholas knew it as well. Through perseverance and tenacity, he got his 47 seconds elevator pitch with the owner, and that was enough to escalate into discussions, presentations, and reunions that went long into the night. On one of these nights, Nicholas offered him an executive position responsible for modernizing the company, to bring it to the age of the internet. Nonetheless, the job came with an odd caveat. Nicholas explained that there was one thing particularly dissimilar about him. He was a Nosferatu, a vampire to be simply put. At first, Oliver laughed, believing it to be a prank, but the seriousness in the eyes of the CEO made him doubt himself. Nicholas reiterated his offer, promising an ungodly amount of money, power, and eternal life. Believing Nicholas to be an eccentric billionaire, as they are not uncommon, Oliver accepted. What could be the worst thing to happen in indulging the man? Third terror never left Oliver's eyes as he lay dead in the checkered marble floors. The last thing reflected in his eyes were the fangs of his sire. The smell of iron lifting through the air along the spray of blood that came from his neck would forever stain his memory every time he would have to consume the life of another from this night forward. Since he was a member of the ruling house, Oliver was weary of getting ripped off by other Nosferatu, who constantly bothered him for favors. So he cautiously studied vampiric politics, relationships, and family trees. He learned about their history and famous personalities, even though he dealt more with the mortal aspect of the business. Back to the present, Oliver was relaxing on his presidential office chair, while perusing financial reports on the screen of his computer. The matter of the suspicious trade card intruded once or twice more into his mind, briefly only to be pushed aside again by the heavy workload when he heard his door opening. It was Nicholas.
Have you finished with the reports?
Yes, Nick. I am satisfied with the yield performance, but looking into the sheets, I am sure we can make things smoother.
Good. I'm going home. Don't stay here until the sun rises. It would be a scene if the morning staff bumped into you sleeping.
Oliver remembered the time he had almost let this very situation happen, if not for his sire's timely intervention.
You know, looking at you, I cannot help but remember my own sire, Elsa. She spent long hours poring over the balance sheets and company documents. I learned a lot from her.
It's a shame she is gone, Nick. I know how much she meant to you, and I still think you should investigate this matter further.
Oliver, I already told you we lost her to a disaster more than a century ago. I was away from the city when it all happened.
What about the king? Was he involved in a disaster as well?
Francis Stephen was already rarely present in the city before his coronation. For decades, he was seen in Dreadford barely once a year. I admit that occasionally I ask Holloway for an audience with the king, but it is never granted. All matters directed to him are forwarded to the council.
Not even personal visits?
No. It is said he is unavailable.
Don't you find this odd, Nick?
I guess once you become king, you can indulge yourself to the point of eccentricity. Either way, we should focus on our business and not go looking for problems in the dark.
Nicholas turned to go away, but was interrupted again by Oliver.
Speaking of our business, our company was started by your sire Elsa, was it not?
Nicholas looked back to his child and checked his watch before turning once again to Oliver.
Yes, she was quite the businesswoman, a genius with numbers I have not seen matched. She used to buy a lot of failed businesses and turn them profitable. I had been brought into the blood to help her the same as I did with you. After we lost her, I returned to the city and inherited it all. We have grown a lot since, but I keep close to heart what she has passed down to me.
Well, Nick, don't go getting destroyed. I am not close to being ready to manage this whole business.
It is not in my plans, but it would be great if you stopped getting distracted with gossip and focused on the tasks at hand.
The young executive chuckled, and his sire went away for the night. Oliver heated some blood in the microwave and left when the coming morning was around the corner. He always preferred driving himself. He could never feel at peace with a driver knowing his schedule. He had heard his fair share of stories involving betrayal and backstabbing among the Nosferatu. As usual, he awoke as soon as the sun went down. Nosferatu, who were very recently brought into the blood, were early risers among the damned. Waking up from the vampiric slumber was very different from mortal sleep, more akin to having your powers returned, no longer kept away by the light, as if the creatures of darkness were once again permitted to roam and corrupt the night. The young executive was getting ready to go out when his phone rang. No number was displayed on the screen. He toyed with the idea of not picking the call, but only for a second. When he answered, he heard muffled voices. 2 women were speaking, but he could not understand it clearly.
Oliver's phone, state your business.
He was ready to hang up the call when a name caught his attention.
He is worried about your supermarkets, Elsa. They are working at peak performance. Hiccups are expected and accounted for during the planning stages of any well-drawn operation. The solutions are already in place. On the matters of blood output, Hector is going to have his demands met on the agreed date and time. Precisely. Well, you seem to have it all figured out, so I'm going to pass the good news along to him. Tell me, Elsa, don't you feel tired of never coming out of this office? Working all the time, never going out and enjoying your eternity?
The call dropped. Oliver could not believe his ears. He spent several seconds looking at his phone. He could not dial back to the number. Maybe he should have someone with the proper expertise look into it and try to understand better what just transpired. He drove lightning fast to the skyscraper downtown, where House Drackle conducted its night-to-night operations. The pride and joy of his house, Dreadford Tower, or the Fang, as it was known amongst the vampires of Dreadford. The glass and steel structure, 1889 feet high, bit the sprawling metropolis at the heart of downtown Dreadford, in its financial district, where Oliver and his sire worked. As soon as he arrived, he asked for the familiar at his service to call Nicholas, but his sire was off at a meeting. When he arrived at his office, there was a delivery package waiting for him, something that had arrived during the day. Oliver was startled by what he found inside, a supermarket bag from Sunrise Groceries. He took the card from inside his pocket, and it had the same logo and name, only it was modernized, saying Groceries instead of Emporium now. Someone was messing with him. He asked his familiar for any information about the delivery and who made it to be sent his way, but that would take some time. He decided to go to the board meeting room and try to take some minutes of the Duke's attention. Jacob Holloway was the acting leader of the house in the name of the king and represented it on the council. It was a rare event for him to go upstairs. No familiars are allowed, and only the eldest among the Nosferatu have an office on the highest floors of the Fang. The house has some periodic boardroom meetings that Oliver attended, but apart from these occasions, he was never summoned to the top floors, thanks to his young age as a member of House Draco. The elevator doors opened with a ring when he arrived. The corridor was pristine and had a faint smell of lavender. Oliver could almost see his reflection on the marble that made up the floor. From the windows, he was able to see the city under him, like he was a god atop of Olympus. He directed himself to the waiting area outside the boardroom. There, a huge painting covered an entire wall from the ceiling to the floor. It depicted a blonde man with long hair that fell to his back, with an amicable smile standing behind 3 sitting people. His right hand was on the shoulder of one of them, a brunette woman exuding confidence and charm. The man's other hand rested on the shoulder of another, a blonde woman looking a little younger and shy. The third person at the side of the 2 women was an old man, who looked proud to anyone who stood before the painting to admire it. Written near the painting were the names of the people depicted on it: Francis Stephen, Drusilla Morris, Jacob Holloway, and Elsa York, the king and his 3 children.
There you are, Your Highness. And Elsa as well.
He heard voices and noise coming from the boardroom. He approached the door and knocked on it, and without waiting for any answer, he opened the door of the Dragon's Den, as the boardroom was known. The creme de la creme of House Drackle was there. The Duke, Jacob Holloway, also known as the Old Dragon, was sitting at the head of the long table, and standing up at his side, it was Steve Corse, his right hand, an old slumlord that now dominated the real estate business. Sitting at the Old Dragon's right side was his son Edmund Stone, also known as the Mad Dragon. Sitting at his left side was his son's rival Salvatore de' Medici, also known as the Red Dragon, along other lesser-known counts and barons. They all stopped talking the moment Oliver entered the room and stared at him. A smell of blood permeated the whole place. Human blood.
Sir, sorry to interrupt.
And what is the reason for this interruption, child?
I have some information you should know, sir, and some questions too.
You should look for my familiar for these matters. Do not...
It pertains to your sister Elsa. I believe she is alive.
The elder Dracul let the silence hang a little before speaking again.
Please, forgive me. Give us the room. This won't take long.
The other Nosferatu got up and left the board meeting room, leaving him alone with Holloway.
How is Nicholas, my nephew, doing? Does he have anything to do with this?
Holloway asked, getting comfortable on his chair.
No, sir. He is all right. He is out of office, meeting some investors and closing a deal with some suppliers. He does not have anything to do with the matters I want to speak with you, sir. Not yet.
And you are coming to me before going to your sire? Have you seen a ghost? You said my sister is alive. Well, as much as any of us can be said to be alive.
Yes, sir. I have reasons to believe it. Or that someone is trying to make me believe it.
My sister was destroyed, Mr. Oliver. She died during the times of the Great Betrayal. Both of them did, Drusilla and Elsa. My older sister didn't leave any children, but we were lucky that Nicholas was away from the city and survived. Why do you believe that anything different transpired, child?
Sir, I found a trade card inside my car. After that, I received a pocket dial, 2 women talking, and one of them was called Elsa, and they mentioned a supermarket. And last, I received a delivery with this bag from the same market. Can you make sense of any of it, sir?
If what you speak is true, this should be brought to the king's attention as soon as possible. But first, we need to understand if what you say is not some kind of twisted scheme. Let's not waste your Serene Highness's time. I'm going to get to the bottom of this situation, Mr. Oliver. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Leave here the card, the bag, and your cell phone so they can help the investigation I am going to launch.
But sir...
And do it fast. I have other matters to attend to. If you hadn't noticed, I was having a meeting when you barged into the room. A meeting I intend to continue.
Oliver did not want to do what Holloway demanded, but he complied anyway. He did not know if it was some kind of supernatural compulsion or only dread that made him do it. He left the room without the items, and with a promise that he would be informed if the investigation reached anything of note. Holloway gave him clear instructions to leave the matter alone until further notice. Instructions Oliver did not plan to obey. While he waited for the elevator to arrive, he heard someone approaching him.
Don't ever think about doing something like that again, Mr. Oliver. Next time you are going to direct any request through me. Is that understood? Said
Jennifer, Holloway's secretary and familiar.
Yes, Jennifer, I just thought that he would...
Who cares about what a child thinks? We have rules and protocols, Mr. Oliver. They are what keep us above beasts. You either follow them or prepare to face the consequences. Your thoughts and feelings be damned.
Before Oliver could answer, the doors to the elevator opened. He excused himself and entered, leaving the woman behind. Jennifer was only a familiar, but she was Holloway's familiar, which made her more politically powerful than many Nosferatu. Of course, he could snap her neck like a twig, but he would have to answer to her master, and the old dragon was not to be contended with. After what transpired, the young executive could not concentrate on his work. He feared he was becoming obsessive, but he did not like being messed with, and he was sure something very fishy was going on. He kept researching about Sunrise Groceries on the internet. He discovered that it was one of the businesses left by Elsa to Nicholas, but it was sold around the turn of the 20th century because it was going bankrupt. Around midnight, his secretary asked him if he had free time for a meeting with his sire. Within minutes, Oliver entered his sire's office, visibly relieved. Nicholas's room was immense. At the end of the room stood his desk near a full-wall window. Some couches were at a corner around a table for some more relaxed conversations. His sire stood with the back turned to Oliver. He was gazing at the city, standing close to the window.
Oliver, are you all right? I received some concerning news about you.
Nicholas said, still looking at the night lights of the city.
Nick, I don't know what is happening. You have to believe me, something is very out of place.
Nicholas turned to his child and pointed at the couches.
Okay, Oliver, tell me everything.
Both men took their places, and Oliver explained the recent events.
Nick, I think your sire is alive, or someone who knows the story is trying to convince us that she is. Holloway even said that the king should be informed.
Oliver, that's a bizarre tale indeed. Unfortunately, I am sure my sire do not walk among us. It is possible that some kind of deception is at play here, but I want you to remember one thing, my son. Our blood, Dracul blood, is prone to instability when we allow ourselves to drift away from a stern and focused path. Our Nephilim, the dragon, is powerful and unwavering. It keeps battering inside our souls, and if we feed it, it will feed upon us entirely.
Oliver felt betrayed for having his intuition be confused by madness. It happened every time he had a visionary idea. People would laugh at him, but he thought Nicholas was different. He said nothing and let his sire continue.
I have seen Holloway put down more than one member of House Dracul who were showing early symptoms of the madness, and he goes through great lengths to keep his son from succumbing to it. Do not let this turn you into a deranged lunatic. If he said he would get into the bottom of it, give him some time. I know Holloway is, shall we say, difficult, but your soul may be at stake here. Maybe the whole transition from mortal to Nosferatu is being too hard on you.
Nick, you don't understand.
Why don't you take some days off and rest a little? Maybe practice some hobby.
Nick, I need to know what is behind this.
If Holloway turns out empty-handed and these bizarre events do not stop, I give you my word that I will find out who is responsible for it all. But right now it seems to me someone is trying to bait you into falling to the dragon. Let it rest. Go home and take some days off.
I am telling you, Nick.
It's an order, not a request. See you next week, partner.
It pained Nicholas to do that, but he felt like he had no choice. Oliver didn't try to retort. He got up and went home. As he drove back to his mansion, he was already musing on how he could continue his investigation by himself, and he knew how. A contact in House Ashkari told him about a young Nosferatu from House Strix who was quite the detective, and he was taking cases for gold. One, Daniel Reed. So he arranged a meeting at Dreadford's public library.
Mr. Reed, I might not be as important as some of your clientele, and I fear this case may be dangerous. But if you help me, I can assure you I am going to reward you all handsomely.
The four Nosferatu talked quietly among themselves before answering.
You piqued our interest, Mr. Oliver. What can we do for you?
Oliver explained everything that has transpired until now, and the companions listened intently.
I want to understand what is happening and if my grandsire is alive. And if not, who is sending these clues to me and why? I need somebody to help me through this nightmare. My sire thinks I am going mad.
Okay. I have a lot to chew on. Let me think a bit, and meanwhile you can get acquainted with my associates.
Daniel stepped aside to review his notes, and Eloise approached him quietly.
I think we don't want to go anywhere near this.
Why would you say that?
That guy is Nicholas C. Graham's child. He is a direct descendant from the king.
You mean the mysterious king? Who should be sitting on the empty throne at the amphitheater?
She nodded in confirmation, and Daniel took a good look at the man whose blood was the king's own.
Excuse me, Mr. Oliver, but your grandsire, Elsa, is she a child of the king?
An eerie silence took over the room.
Yes. She is.
I am not going to let you down, Oliver, but I am not going to force anyone to get involved with this case.
I am not going to leave you in the lurch, Daniel. I believe we have better chances in this wretched city if we stick together.
If you think we can solve this, I won't back down now, but we have to be careful.
Everyone looked to Julio, who was deep in thought, his hands touching each other by the digit of the fingers.
Of course I'm in. I was wondering, Mr. Oliver, have you ever tried uncovering who's the owner of this supermarket?
I tried searching for this info. It used to belong to us. It was almost going bankrupt, so we sold it, and it was acquired by someone who turned the situation around. Regrettably, I can't uncover who the owner is. I found a corporate maze of holdings and investment funds. The same way Nicholas and myself organize our business. Too close to home, if you ask me. I may be able to uncover the way around the maze, but it will take time.
Do you think we could have a talk with your sire?
Unfortunately, we can't. He asked me to drop the case and let Holloway do the investigation instead. I am acting without his approval or knowledge.
Our best way forward is to find out who sent the card in the bag. Can I take a look at them?
Holloway confiscated them both along with my cell phone. I don't believe he will allow us to have them back.
We have no leads.
It would be naive of us to believe this is by accident. Someone is trying to cover up the truth.
What about the package that was used to send you the bag? Do you still have it?
Yes, it was the only thing Holloway did not ask for.
It can be useful. Let me have it.
Oliver opened a suitcase and gave it to Daniel, who used his senses, displacing them to the past. He saw a man preparing the package with a bag from Sunrise Groceries inside. He was clearly a familiar, the smell of vampiric blood all over him. It reminded the detective of the vampire who held Christina hostage. He too could smell vampiric blood on her. His senses were getting sharper. The room was not what could be expected from a delivery service. It was run down, dark, and almost empty. He looked around and found a window. He concentrated hard and he could see the street outside and recognized it.
I know from where the package was sent to you, Mr. Oliver. We are going to give it a visit.
Daniel and his group were leaving the room when they noticed Oliver coming with them.
What? I want to get to the bottom of this. No way I am staying behind.
The young executive offered to drive and take them in his SUV. The night was dark, and a persistent rain fell from the sky while they crossed the city. One of the positives about living only at night was that Nosferatu only rarely were stuck in traffic.
So you and the other Nosferatu of House Dracul are in the dark about the king too? I always thought you guys knew the secret, since you are all from the same house.
If there is some kind of secret, I am not part of it. I am not close to the older Nosferatu of the house, apart from my sire. I think the leader of the house particularly dislikes me.
Yeah, I know how you feel. The leader of my house doesn't like me either.
At least you know the leader of your house. I was turned and left behind. I never asked for this. I should have listened to that goddamn manual.
Daniel looked to Tom and wondered if any other of the Nosferatu accompanying them were turned against their will. He remembered how he himself was forced into becoming a vampire. This world of blood and death usually did not bother asking if you wanted to be part of it, but there were exceptions. Julio told him that he accepted becoming a Nosferatu as part of a deal to help his wife. Daniel wondered about Eloise's transformation, but she rarely spoke of her past.
We are here.
They exited the vehicle. Daniel had his stake at hand, Eloise and Tom were empty-handed, Julio had his cane, and Oliver took out a shotgun from the trunk. They were in front of an old building, windows barred and the peeling paint looked dingy and decrepit. The doors leading to the inside of the building were surprisingly open. Someone had forced their way in. The 5 Nosferatu cautiously entered the building. A muffled scream came from somewhere inside. When they entered, they saw what appeared to be a massacre. There was blood everywhere. Once again, they heard a scream and the sound of struggle, followed by several shots being fired. They did not waste any second and rushed to the direction of the sound of the guns. They found 4 men armed to the teeth in tactical gear and covered by shadows. Daniel saw a grotesque Nosferatu biting the neck of a man with malice. The Nosferatu pointed to Daniel and his companions and swiftly left the room by a corridor. The men started to shoot. Eloise took point covering her allies, taking several shots while Tom took hold of a table and threw it against the men, making them scramble their positions. Oliver cocked the shotgun and passed by Eloise. Shots grazed his face and body, and some hit him full force, but he took it all without wincing, discharging the weapon against their foes, like a modern knight getting into the battlefield.
I'm going after the Nosferatu. Take care.
Daniel saw the long corridor before him and felt the emotions of the fleeing Nosferatu flooding through it. He felt like a cornered rat caught red-handed. As he advanced, he noticed Julio following behind, limping with his cane.
Are you sure you are all right, Julio?
I can manage. Let's go.
The two followed the fleeing Nosferatu to a door that stood ajar. Daniel and Julio entered it, and inside they found an old storeroom. Several boxes filled the chamber and there were no windows.
Damn it, he is here, I can feel it.
As they approached the boxes, they heard the sound of the door they just entered closing and locking from outside. Something heavy was swiftly dragged to the other side before they could return to the door.
Locked shut.
Daniel tried his best, but the door wouldn't budge.
I think we...
Julio was interrupted by an explosion inside the room with them. An incendiary device had gone off. By reflex, Julio let go of his cane, using an incantation to shield him and Daniel. It took staggering effort from him, and he felt his blood burning like fuel inside his veins as his hands trembled. Daniel was stunned watching the old engineer holding the explosion from engulfing them.
I can't hold it much longer. You have to find a way out.
Daniel was awakened by his companion's words. Everything seemed to pass slowly to him. He tried the door once again, but with no result. He looked for another door, but the room had none. No windows either. He started searching the ceiling for some escape route, but there was none. Before the firestorm caused by the explosion could finally engulf them, Tom punched his way through the walls, grabbing his companions as Eloise got in the way of the fire, absorbing it all. The fire ripping ashes from her skin and burning her dead flesh. She fell to the floor, and they did not know if she would turn to ashes at any moment and be destroyed. Daniel took her in his arms, and they scrambled their way off the building. The fire was quickly spreading everywhere. Oliver screamed at them, pointing the way out, holding the door open, and they left just in time before more harm could come to them. Daniel put Eloise down, screaming her name, trying to wake her up. Oliver ran to the car, and from the trunk brought a blood bag and gave it to him, who in his turn ripped a gash on it and poured the contents in her mouth. Some of her wounds healed, and she opened her eyes, coughing.
Hey there, stranger.
Daniel fell back, laughing in relief. He looked at Julio, who was exhausted and looked thirsty. The detective offered the rest of the contents to the magician, who accepted.
We better leave before the cops get here.
Daniel helped Eloise to get up, and they went back to the car and left the scene behind.
Why would the tower get involved in this? What do they have to do with Elsa in your case, Mr. Oliver?
They were not from the tower, Julio. After you and Daniel left and we handled the shooters, I interrogated one of them. He confessed they worked for House Orlock. They were from the court.
The 5 vampires stood silent for a while.
Right now we need to patch up. I have a blood stash I traded for gold in Michael's church. We should go there.
I thought you were staying in the motel.
I am, but the church is safer for this kind of stuff. It also keeps Michael pleased because it gives me a reason to come by.
What about the agents from House Orlock?
We should keep this very quiet for now. Oliver is in danger. I think you should stay with us and take the time to uncover that corporate maze. Maybe some identities from the staff of the supermarket too.
Perhaps you are right, but it could put you in danger as well, and I don't want that.
Are you ready to forget about this case and let it go?
No. I may not know what it is, but I know I am onto something. I am going to uncover it, find proof, and burn the hell of the people responsible for this mess. I just don't want others becoming targets because of me.
You will not get it done alone, Oliver. We should let things cool down for a while, and you should stay out of sight. When the opportunity arises, we can get back into the case. Together. I am not one to leave a case unsolved. Whatever it takes.
I am at a loss for words, Mr. Reed. Thank you.
They stopped by the church and went inside by the back door. The detective went ahead to talk with his sire, while the others waited. Father Michael was sitting at his desk writing something, and as soon as Daniel arrived, he closed it and raised his face to him.
My child, what brings you here tonight? You looked like you went to hell and back.
Michael, I have my associates here, but we won't stay long. We just need time to recover. I'll use the blood I stashed here. We won't cause any trouble.
All right. As I said, it pays for us to have things prepared for hard times beforehand, doesn't it? It is good you decided to spend your gold wisely.
Daniel felt a little angry for being patronized, but kept quiet.
I am sorry, but I can't go and meet your crew. I am a little busy tonight, but take your time with them. You have my blessings.
Daniel turned to leave, but stopped mid-movement.
I remembered something. You told me that me and my companions should find a name for our crew. Considering you insist on calling me a son, I talked with them, and they all agreed with the name I suggested. We are looking into who we need to speak with in the King's Council to make it official.
And what would that name be, my child?
The Midnight Fiends.